The iPhone 16 is finally launched for everyone, and since Apple likes to praise the camera so much, today I'm going to compare the iPhone 16 Pro to a Sony camera. We'll be mainly talking about the portrait mode, since the smaller Pro now also has a 5x telephoto camera, photographic styles, and touch on the camera control button as well. Let's start with what I think is the most significant improvement, which is photographic styles. I feel like everybody's talking about them, but for the wrong reason. For those who don't know, photographic styles are basically built-in configurable presets, mostly like in Lightroom. Some of them are purely for skin tones, some are pretty dramatic and try to emulate film, specifically CineStill and Kodak Portra 800. But here's the thing, they now work with portrait mode. Previously they didn't, and to be honest, they were barely any useful even in the standard camera mode. But now they bring the iPhone's camera much closer to a real camera. The only other significant change that did that was Pro RAW, which came with the iPhone 12 Pro. But with RAW you need to know how to edit, but with photographic styles the edit is already baked in and saved as a preset, which you can freely choose, even after the photo was taken. Portrait mode has always been my go-to for photos on the iPhone, unless I was shooting in RAW. The reason is, portrait mode and RAW are the only modes which make the iPhone camera stand out and look like a real camera. Now that you can combine portrait mode with photographic styles, it's a game changer. This is not a small improvement. The ability to apply these styles while keeping the depth data from portrait mode opens up new creative possibilities that make your shots look like they were taken on a professional camera, not just on a smartphone. If I could ask for one more improvement, that would be the ability to shoot portrait mode and RAW simultaneously. That would give you full control over the edit while still having the depth data from portrait mode. But honestly, this combination of portrait mode and photographic styles bring the iPhone 16 Pro more closer than ever to pro-level photography for regular everyday users. Now, about the telephoto lens. I was very happy when they said that the 5x lens was coming to the smaller Pro, but I missed the 3x lens. It was my go-to for portraits on previous iPhones, and despite being able to manually zoom in 3 times using the 48 megapixel main lens, it's not as precise. I constantly find myself landing over 3x or under 3x, which is quite annoying. The precision and the simplicity of a 3x button is hard to replace, especially since the 3x lens was a 77mm equivalent. And most of you probably don't know this, but the 85mm lens is the perfect lens for taking portrait shots. Because at 85mm, your face looks most natural without any distortion coming from the lens. And the iPhone 77mm 3x lens was very close to an 85mm lens. Now the iPhone has a 5x telephoto lens, which would be much better for wildlife photography, let's say, but for regular portraits it's not as good, as you have to go pretty far to take the shot. But at least it now has a much better background compression, meaning it brings the background much closer. That said, this might just be something I need more time to adjust to. After years of using the 3x lens, I'm still in the early stages of getting used to the 5x lens, so I'll need to give it some more time before I make my final judgment. I'll give you an update in my full camera review, which is coming next week, so make sure to subscribe for that. Oh, and by the way, the iPhone 16 Pro 5x lens is really just the 3x lens from the 13 Pro. It just has a piece of glass in front of it that makes the light bounce and simulate the 5x look. This means that while you're getting the extra reach for tighter shots, it's still not great in low light, so keep that in mind. I would generally avoid using the 5x lens, let's say past 4 p.m. Unless you have a controlled light source, that is. Now, let's talk about the camera control button. Why? Who asked for this? Honestly, this thing is a mess. It's placed awkwardly, it's too high up to be used in landscape, and it's way too low to be used in portrait. So you're either doing hand gymnastics, which make your hands crump up, or you're gonna be blocking a part of a screen trying to reach it. It's also prone to causing camera shake when you press it, which is the last thing you want when taking a photo. The zoom wheel is much easier to use for this purpose, so I just don't get the reason behind why this button exists. Maybe for swiping through photographic styles, but you're probably just gonna set a style and don't change it every time you take a picture. So it's like Apple is overcomplicating something that should be really simple. You know what's the only thing that this button is good for? You can launch the camera from anywhere in the system, so you no longer have to minimize the app and look for the camera app, you can just press the button. But that's about it. To sum it up, the iPhone 16 Pro's portrait mode has taken a huge leap forward with the integration of photographic styles, and while I miss the dedicated 3x lens, the new 5x zoom brings some new advantages, as long as you're in good lighting. I'll cover these topics in much more detail, along with the addition of JPEG XL, Apple's new image format. Well, it's not developed by Apple, Apple just uses it in the iPhone 16 Pro, in my big camera review next week. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. And with that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.